Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I decided to make another video. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I showed you guys 7 fantasy books on my TBR that you haven't heard of. And I asked you guys if you wanted a part 2 of that video, either showing just 7 more fantasy books or different genres or whatever, because I have a lot of books. And you guys said, yes, please, you wanted a part 2 specifically of fantasy books. So I have collected 7 more to show you guys. And we're back. So I did find 7 more fantasy books. This time they're not all from my TBR. I have actually read 3 of these, but I haven't seen them talked about too much, so I still wanted to put them on the list, and then the other 4 I haven't read. Something I pride myself in is being more adventurous with my reading than most of the people I see on the books to internet community. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with reading things you hear great stuff about. Nobody wants to waste their time reading a book that sucks. But I do like to try new things, and I love to collect books, so I have a lot of books that nobody's ever really heard of or talked about a lot. The first book on the list is one that I've already read, and it is Pennyblade by J.L. Warad. Pennyblade is a grimdark fantasy about a high-blood elf named Kira who lives among the common folk and is basically a sword for hire, or a rapier for hire, or a pennyblade, as they're actually called in the book. She is living in exile, just picking up work where she can get it, but when she's betrayed, she has to go hunting for a demon, all the while dealing with her own personal stuff along the way. This book is hilarious and disgusting and so, like, perverted, but in a really fun way. I also have the second book, The Keep Within. I just didn't bring it upstairs, but I definitely recommend this book if you're a fan of the First Law trilogy. It's queer, it's gritty, it's awesome, it is really underrated. I wish more people had read this series. The next book on the list is actually one that I DNF'd, not because it was bad, I just was not in the mood for it. It's Mordu by Alex Phoebe. I think I'm gonna give this another go because I have heard a few people talking about this one, and generally it's a well-liked book. And on the back, the reason I got it is because it's described as being similar to Philip Pullman, China Miéville, Susanna Clarke, Michael Moorcock, and Lewis Carroll, which is a fever dream of amazing authors. For me, this reads as a very Roald Dahl, Neil Gaiman-esque story. The premise is that God is dead and his corpse is buried beneath the catacombs of Mordu. The main character is a boy named Nathan, and he is living in poverty. He's giving me like Charlie Bucket vibes. That's why I said Roald Dahl. I don't know why. But he is summoned to Mordu by a great wizard, and he sort of has to pass some trials to maybe get in company with him. And it really is a story, to my knowledge, of magic and oppression, and it gives me sort of rags to riches, if the riches was sorcery vibes. But again, I didn't finish it because it's quite wordy, and a couple years ago when I was reading it, I wasn't in the mood for it, but I really do want to get back to it. And I should. And it is a series as well. This is not the only one. The third book that I have here is another one that I have read. It is The Wolf in the Whale by Jordana Max Brodsky. This is a fantasy based in both Inuit and Norse mythology. It's combining the two, which makes sense just for the time period it's set in. It's the story of Omat, who is a child of an Inuit community who is born with the spirit of a wolf inside them, and the village that they're living in is not thriving, so they have to embark on a journey where they do encounter the Vikings. And as Omat connects with the Vikings and one particular warrior, they set into motion events that cannot be stopped. This is a really good read if you're in for something with the Viking vibes, and there are Vikings in it, but if you're not looking for just a hard-hitting Viking story and you want something a little more diverse or unique, I'd say this is a good one. It's also really great for a nice cold wintry read, obviously. This is a story about gender and belief, and it is set in Canada or Turtle Island, which is kind of cool for a Canadian reader as myself. Okay, the next 4 are books I have not read as of yet, but they are actually on my TBR. So first up, we have The Phoenix King by Aparna Verma. It came out from Orbit in August 2023, and when it was being advertised by Orbit, I thought this book was gonna blow up. I'm not really sure. So I actually got an arc of it at the same time as The Sun and the Void by Gabriela Romero Lacruz. That one did blow up, and it was picked up by a lot of subscription boxes, and I feel like because they were released in tandem, this one just got the short end of the stick, I guess, for people's attention. This is an Indian-inspired fantasy about fire magic and assassins and kingdoms and prophecies and princesses and secrets. And there's a quote on the back from Vaishnavi Patel that says, "Come for the science fantasy world building and stay for the characters you just can't get out of your head." And I think that the term science fantasy is very intriguing. I want to read this book and figure out what exactly that means, because if the magic system is based in science, that is a huge win for me. The fifth book I want to talk about is The Stone in the Skull by Elizabeth Bear. This is an older book, actually. I got this at Book Outlet when it was closing down. The reason this was originally on my TBR is because the art is by Richard Anderson, who is my favorite cover artist, and I've pretty much bought every single book he has designed for. So that's why this was on my radar, and then I saw this and the second one, The Red Stained Wings, at Book Outlet, so I grabbed them while I had the chance. They were super cheap. They're both published by Tor, but I've not really heard anything about them for some reason. It's the Lotus Kingdoms series, but it is a companion to Elizabeth Bear's previous series, The Eternal Sky, which I think people also don't talk about. So I'm kind of talking about both series right now. From what I can tell, there are three main characters of this book. There's an automaton who used to be commanded by a wizard, but the wizard is long dead. Then there is someone called the Dead Man, who is a bitter survivor of the bodyguard of the deposed Uthman Caliphate. And then the other one is a young queen who has to choose a husband who will basically take over her kingdom. And the leading suitor is her own cousin, who sounds awful. I really want to read this entire series, both Eternal Sky and Lotus Kingdoms, because it does sound really unique, and I haven't read a lot of stories surrounding automatons. So if you've read this, let me know where to start. Is it okay to read just this one, or do I have to start with The Eternal Sky? I don't really know, but I'd be down to start with The Eternal Sky. I just don't know. Book number 6 might actually be a novella. I haven't done the math, but it's Servant Mage by Kate Elliott. I think this is a novella from Tor. Kate Elliott has written so many books, but I feel like she is just straight up ignored on Bookstagram and BookTube. She's like from an era past, so we're not really following her anymore, I guess, but we should. This is her second most recent release. She had a sort of sci-fi adventure one that I read last year called The Keeper 6, but this is a dragon book. This is a story about a freed, indentured mage who gets caught up in an assassination attempt on a royal baby and sort of has to rethink about what she knows about the world and her own powers, which happen to be demons in her bones. The last book on the list I talked about briefly in my recent haul video, but I didn't actually tell you what it was about. I just said that I got it. And it is These Deathless Shores by P.H. Lowe. Now this is an ARC. It's not actually out until July this year, but it's really exciting and I want to read it so badly. This is a reimagining of the Peter Pan universe. And we've seen a lot of those, but I am a sucker for them every time. And this one does sound a little different. This is the story of Jordan, who was once a lost boy. Jordan is a girl, but that doesn't matter. So she at one point was in Neverland with Peter, but she has since returned to England and grown up and is suffering withdrawals from the addictive magic dust and processing the trauma that she experienced in Neverland. And from what I can tell, the point of the story is that she is returning to Neverland to confront Peter about what happened to her as a child. And the tagline for this, or the end of the blurb, is, if that makes her the villain, so be it. And I think that's awesome. So I'm really excited to get into this. I think the cover is really cool. I've already read the first couple pages. I just want to say one thing that sucks about getting ARCs is they never have the maps. So I've just got these blank pages, and I know they'd probably be so cool because they're of Neverland, but I'll just have to suffer. They also don't have the chapter heading images either. But that's just how it is. So These Deathless Shores is available from Orbit in North America, July 2024. It's coming from Angry Robot in the UK, probably also July 2024, but I don't have the actual date, so don't quote me on that, but that's what I think is happening. And that's it. Those were 7 fantasy books on my TBR or already read from my TBR that you've never heard of. Let me know again in the comments if you want like a part 3 of this, more fantasy books. I am also kind of dying to do science fiction and horror though, so those might actually be next because I've got some really good suggestions. Thank you again to today's sponsor, Scotch Porter. I appreciate you sending me your products. Check out my affiliate links in the description to get 10% off any of their products. Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 2 days a week. I love you guys. Goodbye.